live from the great Pacific Northwest. This is We Like the Blazers. It is about 43 degrees on a Tuesday afternoon in December. The nose is lit on the reindeer sign, and I am ready to talk some Blazers basketball with my co-hosts, the original co-hosts of We Like the Blazers, Brandon Goldner. Brandon, how's it going?
Just one of many, Connor. I am great. It is 34 degrees and not raining here, so that's nice here in New Haven, Connecticut. It is cold. It has been bitter. It's been below freezing for the last couple of days. And I went on a run after Thanksgiving that was the coldest run of the year, quite exhilarating. To that point, Connor, how was your Thanksgiving? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good. I think running in the cold builds character and probably helps with that whole process, but I'm good. Did not go on any runs after Thanksgiving, probably should have, but I had a nice quaint Thanksgiving in Ridgefield, Washington with my parents, and I contributed not a lot to the dinner, but I did buy a Baskin-Robbins turkey ice cream cake. It was yes.
Sorry, a turkey ice cream cake.
Yes,
Does it taste like turkey or just look like turkey? Is this one of those, like, is it cake moments where it looks like a couch, but it's cake? It looks like a turkey, but doesn't taste like a turkey then? It
was a looks like is this cake moment. It's shaped like a turkey, designed to look like a turkey by the great like chefs of Baskin-Robbins, and it's just
shout out to the Baskin-Robbins.
Yeah,
I love you.
It is vanilla with caramel on the outside, like a caramel glaze, so that's where you get that nice turkey color. And then they made like little drumsticks with ice cream cones. And me and my brother were walking to Fred Meyer like the day before Thanksgiving, and we saw the flyer with the turkey cake, and we were like, we are adults who have a reasonable amount of money to buy this $50 turkey cake, and we did it. So that was our big thing.
Vanilla with a caramelized outside, just like me in the summer. Ayo! That's the problem with disposable income as an adult, is you can buy candy, you can buy shoes. Connor, you can even buy a car. They let you buy a car. My wife and I have been test driving some cars, so I'm like, cars are on the brain. By the way, RIP to the 2005 BMW 325i, which I've had for years. Man, 180 something thousand miles, and I love that car, and still in amazing shape, but we sold it to a friend, and so that's incredible. So it's going to a good family, but I already miss it. But we'll be getting a car. So they let you buy whatever you want. It's wild.
It's crazy. No, I'm really just weird. I'm just new into that whole thing. What did you have a name for the car?
It had no name. It was a car with no name, but boy, did it have soul. And I'm telling you, that model of BMW, I think they were made from 04 to maybe 08. The perfect car, perfect lines, like totally classic. Like that car, I mean, it's going to look classic from now until 50 years from now, and nothing unnecessary. I miss, Connor, you know what? I'm old enough to remember when you put the key in the car, you had to turn it to start it. None of this push button garbage. Absolutely beautiful car. Again, had so many miles on it. I took good care of it. I loved it. Yeah. So now we're looking at other cars. But the one other thing I wanted to point out about Thanksgiving, Connor, was that I got food poisoning. And I just want to tell you something. When you go to the Basketball Hall of Fame, when you march down to Springfield, Mass, and you see Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and the legends of the game, and you get down to the court and you start shooting hoops, you start dunking on those 9-foot hoops, and you start shooting on the peach basket, and then your stomach starts rumbling, Connor, it's such a bummer. It is such a bummer to go to the Basketball Hall of Fame and have some kind of a stomach virus, but I did go. It was awesome, and had a lot of fun, but yeah, I did get food poisoning too, so that was a bummer.
I have a lot of questions about everything you just said. First of all,
classic.
First of all, you went to the Basketball Hall of Fame. Did you mention that to me at all?
I did. I mentioned it. I think I tweeted about it on BlueSky. I think I shared a photo of me. Maybe it was on Instagram. Maybe I didn't actually. Good point. So
I'm like,
follow
wow,
me
this
on
is
Instagram.
news.
Actually, yeah, only you though, not the listeners. That's only for people who actually know in real life. But I went. It was super fun. Got to go with Cassie's uncle. And here's what I'll say, Connor. Also, not one single solitary Portland Trailblazers mention. You had Bill Walton at UCLA. You had Clyde Drexler at Houston. But no Blazers mentions in the whole thing.
On the plaque, it doesn't say like Bill Walton won the NBA championship with the Portland Trailblazers, because that seems like a huge mention.
No, so the room that has all the people's names, it just says their name and then whether they were inducted as a player, a coach, a contributor, or there may be a fourth category. Not the teams, nothing. They had a whole room for the Celtics. Connor, they had an entire exhibit on Kobe Bryant. Not one mention of our Portland Trailblazers. And I have to say, I think that this is Trailblazers erasure. I think it's illegal. And I want the outgoing Biden administration to do something about it.
No, this is crazy. Like, can we get our personal friend, Ron Wyden, on this topic? Because
Senator Wyden, get the Blazers in the Hall of Fame. I mean, come on.
I mean, I know it's like we're being slightly silly about this, but also it's like if you're a Blazers fan and you go to the Hall of Fame, wouldn't or any fan of the NBA, if you go to the Hall of Fame, wouldn't you expect to see just like one mention of the team you take pride in? I think that's pretty ridiculous.
The last thing I'll say about it is the one point at which I actually saw the words Trailblazers was in this Celtics room. Of course, you're in Massachusetts, so they've got to do an entire room about the Celtics. They have the original NBA trophy. So even before the Larry O'Brien, it was like a giant cup. And each year the team would have, their name and the players engraved on it. And so I looked, and through the varnish and the scratches on this really old cup, I could see the 76-77 Blazers were indeed on there. But that was the only place they were mentioned, and it was in the Celtics room. Doesn't count. No jerseys. What a bummer.
In the room of somebody else. That is truly like the small market just problem since the beginning of time.
Truly sick stuff. But now we do turn our attention to our team, the Portland Trailblazers. What a week it was, Connor. As I'm quickly fumbling here to get to their full schedule, I'm also quickly fumbling to decide where does the week begin and where does the week end. I guess if you go from Monday to Monday, the Blazers were 1-4 with a loss against the Grizzlies and the Pacers, that win against the Kings, and then that close loss against Dallas. Maybe that's a good place to start. And also, I don't know if this is the Blazers coming back down to earth. Their record maybe isn't good enough to say that they can come back. Can you come back down to earth if you're below 500? I have no idea. But tell me about this game against the Dallas Mavericks, an interesting one for a handful of reasons. But what was your take? I believe it was simultaneously the Blazers' best offensive performance of the year combined with one of their worst defensive performances of the year. But yeah, what'd you think about that one?
Yeah, if you have I'm about to say if you have TiVo, I don't know if TiVo is still a thing, but if you have recording or Blazer Vision or whatever, if you miss that game,
League Pass, if you're out of market,
that's a good,
truly. Yep.
That is a game that even though they lost, is worth just if you have time going back and watching it, because that was such an entertaining game, and for a team that has such bad 3-point shooting and has put up literally historically awful 3-point shooting nights, it was kind of surreal to see them shoot so well. And in both teams, it was just Luka Doncic and all of the role playing sharpshooting heroes that Dallas has acquired over the years were just smacking all these threes, and you think to yourself, okay, Blazers can't keep up with that. And then Anfernee Simons goes crazy and for just one quarter, and then he goes out for fouls out. And you think, okay, now there's no way they can keep up with this. And then Shaedon Sharp hits some threes, and Tamani Kamara hit 5 threes, and Ryan Rupert went in for 3 minutes and he hit a 3. And so it was such a back and forth, just a boxing match of offense. And the Moda Center was so much fun that night. That may have been the most exciting game like at home this year, that at least energy wise. And to put it in perspective, the Blazers shot 70% from the field in the second half, which almost sounds kind of fake. And I think they shot like 65% from three in the second half, 11 for 17, whatever the number is. I remember the marks, but not the percentage. And they still lost, which is kind of crazy. But just,
I mean, that happens when, it happens when the other team is more talented and somehow also shoots as well as you do. Something interesting to your point about the 3-point shooting, both teams hitting 18 threes, the Blazers doing it in only 31 attempts. The Mavericks needed 36 attempts. They only shot 50% from deep. So yeah, very strange game. Tell me more about what it was like being there. Of course, Connor's not going to keep saying it, but I will. Credentialed reporter. Thank you very much for Blazers Edge. Connor is there. He's in the trenches. Can you still hear me? I'm not going to edit this out because we are always doing it live, but I just got a thing saying that my internet connection was unstable. No.
I can hear you. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
No Spectrum broadband. You're unstable. But how was it for you, someone who's covering the game? I mean, can you... are you so focused on the game that you don't notice, or are you getting the sense that the crowd is juiced up? These teams are going to score 130, 140 points. How was it for you being there?
Oh, I can definitely feel it, especially because the first few games of the season were so dead that now that they've had, and it was kind of a fear of oh my gosh, is this going to be 82 games of this? Compared to those first few games, there's been some great games now, and the other night was no exception. And no, I can feel it. I think growing up in Portland, I've always been kind of in tune to the whole Rip City kind of magic and feel. And obviously this team is not, they have a losing record. They're not going to make the playoffs, but just to feel some hints of that coming back is definitely special to be in the building for.
I have to give you a chef's kiss. Just hints of that coming back, just a whiff of something that we may be familiar with in years past. Reminds me a lot about one young Anfernee Simons, who Connor is finally doing better. The last 3 games, you're doing this without notes. I'm doing this very much with notes because I'm an idiot and can't remember anything. But Anfernee Simons,
you're prepared, and I should probably prepare a little bit.
Incorrect. I simply have opened a tab. But Anfernee Simons, over his last 3 games, is doing what we would hope he would do after a very dreadful start to the season. But his last 3 games, averaging 26 points, 4 boards, 6.7 dimes. Importantly, doing it on 59% shooting and 54% shooting from deep on 9 attempts. Obviously, that's not going to keep up. But the thing that's been encouraging to me, and I wanted to ask you about this, is that Anfernee Simons had these moments over the last couple games where there he is. No, there he goes. Oh, well, there he is again. Oh, well. And even that was more than we have gotten basically all season, where the dude has looked, my opinion coming, the dude has looked disengaged, sullen. Checked out is maybe a little harsh, but I guess so is the word sullen. And to see him engaged, interested, and then in this third quarter against the Dallas Mavericks, Anfernee Simons going on the heater of all heaters, something I had to go back to your point, if you can rewatch the game, had to rewatch that third quarter, hearing Kevin Calabro getting more and more apoplectic as he keeps making shots. And it was just so much fun. What is your take on what's happening with Anfernee Simons with respect to, I really phrased this question very poorly. What I'm trying to ask you is Anfernee Simons playing better? Does this bode well for his chances of, how do I want to put this? I'm trying to be so careful in my words. Him helping the Trailblazers in one way or another, him playing better, does it help make that closer to reality? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
I think so. I think, Anfernee Simons definitely included in trade rumors over the last...
I didn't say that, Connor. Okay, hey, wait. No, hold on.
I'm reading between the lines a little. He's definitely been one of the candidates that people look to as Blazers have Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, and Anfernee Simons. One of them probably has to go. I think it's like a double-edged sword right now because I truly don't think the Blazers have made up their mind yet of what they want to do with Anfernee Simons.
Really? Hold the phone. You're not speaking on behalf of the team, but how could they not have made up what is there to make up your mind about? And I'm taking the position of a person who has this opinion, which may or may not be me. How could you possibly look at Anfernee Simons and be like, yep, that's the future? But I guess I just don't understand that.
No, okay, yeah. It's a good question, and again, I'm so early in the source building part of this that this is truthfully just I'm not in the ear of anybody or nobody's in my ear telling me this stuff. This is just kind of what I'm picking up on.
Connor, you have to get better at that thing about don't you aggregate this, and this is my opinion. You know, like Brian Windhurst, you listen to him talk. He'll go off for 15 seconds, there's no sources, guys. This is not coming from anywhere. I want to just give my opinion, and it's like you have to do it.
That's crazy that I'm because I didn't even think about aggregation. I'm just
you're basically Brian Windhurst at this point. You're basically become Woj. I mean, you're basically Shams. Basically
same college.
That's right.
Yeah, and same college as Brian Wheeler, which is
let's go.
Cooler in a way.
That is cool.
But
all right, so
back to Anfernee Simons.
Your personal opinion, which is not,
how could you say that? I think because
how could you?
Scoot hasn't. I think Scoot has shown improvement this year, and we kind of talked about Denny Avdia as being you can't go off just box scores. Scoot is another guy that I think if you're just box score watching, even sometimes when the box score is good, it's he didn't play that good. So it kind of works both ways with Scoot. But Scoot, although I think he's improving, hasn't established himself as the ideal building block for the future yet. And
what does it have to do with Anfernee Simons sticking around, though? Who cares?
I think that that it just. Sorry, can we pause for a second?
No, we cannot. We're going to do this thing live. Let me put my opinion out there because people haven't heard enough from me, Connor. Here's what I would say. If you're of the mind that... So I think the Blazers should be actively trying to trade Anfernee Simons. Okay, Dad, that's what I think. If you're of the mind that they don't necessarily need to be, then maybe part of your justification is, look, you have a bunch of young players. You do need to have some people on your team who have played NBA games, and even if they're not a mentor per se, they're providing some structure, they're providing some experience, and you can't just throw a bunch of young players into a completely unstructured, unsettled team environment. And therefore, Anfernee Simons may be useful just as a glue, something to cohere together a bunch of young, inexperienced players. So you don't have to agree with that, but that's part of what I can maybe convince myself is the reason why the Blazers may not want to get rid of him if they didn't want to get rid of him. But I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
That's funny because that's not why I think about keeping Anfernee Simons around, mentorship and stuff. I think
not even that, but just he's played games. I don't know.
Yeah, no, just that he's just a player who can contribute.
Be in the NBA. He's been in the NBA, so I guess he knows how to be in the NBA, and that's useful.
Yeah. And I guess, it's hard for me to speak a little bit on this just because I don't fully understand what is going to happen. I think the general...
Neither do any of us.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's true. I need it. Yeah. I think the general consensus is that Anfernee Simons playing better is, of course, good for trade. It's good for any reason. It's good for trade value, and it's good for if the Blazers want to keep him for another year or whatever. Him playing poorly, if you wanted to trade him, it was bizarre this year how he started out just uncharacteristically cold. His numbers were down. Like you said, I don't know if checked out is what I was seeing, but just on an all-time low, playing wise. And I think it started to, maybe rattle him a little bit, and then he got sick and all that. So yeah, but now that he's playing closer to just what you expect, it just keeps the options open, because for, up until last week, I was like, well, if they even want to trade him, I don't know if you're going to get super positive trade value back.
Yeah, and let me ask you something else. And again, I want the listeners to know I'm still learning how to podcast with someone who is an actual professional. And no offense to me, and no offense to Ryan, and no offense to Keith, or even way back to Chris, but I've never podcasted regularly with someone who's actually doing the work. So thank you, Connor. And I have to be mindful that, like, hey, I can't put you on the spot, so I'm going to try not to do that. But I did want to ask you something, and you can deflect this question. When I was watching the post-game interviews after the Dallas game, Anfernee Simons, who, by the way, he got his 27 points in 23 minutes. He only missed 2 shots the entire time. His 24 points in the third quarter was the third best individual scoring quarter in Blazers history, behind CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, and Terry Porter, right? Fourth best.
Oh, but then Damian Lillard, he was also tied.
Anyway, so basically one of the most prolific single individual performances we've ever seen in the history of the franchise. Pretty good. And also a little bit of scoring inflation here, everybody. Like, it's 2024. People are scoring more. Even with that, it's still pretty cool. When I saw the post-game interview with Anfernee Simons, to me, there was something on his face that I was reading as relief. Was that feeling palpable? Did it feel like he was a little bit looser, perhaps, after that game?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that was the happiest I had seen him. And I think it just shows, like, how much he was struggling, and kind of just like get the monkey off his back, even though they lost. And I hate it when, I don't think it was bad that he was happy that he played well and that they lost. If anybody's out there like he should be pissed and that they still lost, like, I don't think that is always.
Okay, Boomer. Who is saying that?
I'm just projecting imaginary people in my mind, but I totally felt it. He was smiling a little bit. Like, even Chauncey Billups was smiling in his. I wrote in my article, like, a more upbeat than usual Chauncey Billups. I think the team just was very happy with that game, to be in a shootout with Dallas, and they all took it as like, hey, we came up short in crunch time, but we played really well and we all shot really well. But yeah, relief. It was interesting, because that was actually my first time. A little bit of behind the scenes here. I have a credential for press conferences, but not locker room yet. That's a little bit like higher status of access. But sometimes when they didn't bring anybody up to the podium that night. So when that happens, I think the PR people do me a solid and are like, okay, well, you can go and do the interviews in the locker room if we're not going to provide you somebody. So that was my first time in there. And the locker room is definitely like more casual and a little bit more comfortable to speak to people. But now I'm like trying to think of what my point was. Not only was he more relieved, I was more relieved to be talking to him there.
Totally. Maybe what you're saying is that you could get a better sense of the vibe of people in the locker room than you can when they're like behind the dais, right? Like,
yes, yeah,
which is true in sports and politics, as it turns out. Like, get a better sense of the candidate when you're hanging out with them than when they're like giving a speech. Like, it's just the way it goes.
It was weird. It was just a little bit more conversational.
Yeah.
And I did ask him if he thought it was better than the heater he went on against Denver like 2 years ago. Remember that? He scored 22 points in the quarter versus Denver. And he did say that the crowd was louder against Denver because all those threes were back to back to back to back. And all the, his production against Dallas, he was scoring all those points, but there were a few possessions between some buckets. It was a little bit more spread out than that heater against Denver.
The team context, I think, matters a little bit there too, right? Like 2 years ago, the Blazers were trying to win, and
they had Damian Lillard. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So it's a different situation. One more thing on Anfernee Simons. I'm not really sure how to ask this question, but it was odd to me that he was in foul trouble. Anfernee Simons not known as someone who commits a ton of fouls. what's the deal with him getting all those fouls? Because it totally affected his defense in the third quarter. In fact, I got into a little bit of a polite back and forth with someone on Blazers Edge about what it meant, and actually on BlueSky too, separately, 2 different times, about what his defense in the third quarter looked like and what was happening there. And, how much do you excuse that with the fact that he was in foul trouble? But why was he in foul trouble in the first place? You can tell I didn't catch the whole game, but I thought that was strange for a guy who's not really known for being someone who fouls.
I saw your little scraps in Blazers Edge and
Blue
Sky.
Nice though, right?
They were. I think everywhere I've seen on Blazers Edge this year, people have been keeping it pretty in line, even with some respectful disagreements, which has been nice. But yeah, I have to disagree with you a little bit, and I thought about this when I was reading it. So now we're about to
cut the recording.
No. So I think when he got those fouls, yes, the defense. To give context, Brandon, not to speak for you, but you were kind of like, hey, when he got in foul trouble, he kind of just turned into a turnstile on defense, and that was noticeable. He was definitely not trying to pick up that foul. There was this one play where Luka Doncic just had the ball up top, drove a little bit, and just kind of waited for Anfernee Simons to back away,
just to move out of the way.
Yeah, and then he was okay, and then he kept going, and on that specific play, DA kind of got caught looking away from the ball too for a second, so it just turned into this wide open what the hell layup. So yeah, there were some bad moments like that, but I do think that why he picked up those 4 fouls is to give Simons credit a little bit here. Is I think with his shot not going so well, I do think he's starting to try to do other things a little bit more and get back to basics a little bit more and give a more intense effort on defense. Some of those fouls in that first half when he picked up 4 were kind of dumb, but also it's because he was trying to make the extra rotation. He dove on the floor for a steal on one play, and I think it just goes back to the point that he was struggling so much and is trying to find ways to kind of get his groove back and be effective. You would hope that it doesn't take an offensive slump for a player to realize the importance of defense fully, but I think Mike Richmond even showed on his podcast that the Blazers defense is doing better with Anfernee Simons on the court versus Scoot Henderson. He had some nice, very smart statistics on that.
I mean, I honestly, a couple of years ago, I thought that Simons was going to turn into a credible defender because he'd been in the league long enough, because of his length. So yeah, I mean, I also, hey, if it takes him getting in foul trouble to go 9 for 11 from the field and get 27 points in 23 minutes, then go for it. And also, yeah, and the last thing, look, Anfernee Simons never been known for his defense. And so, yeah, if that's something where he's trying to give an effort, that's great. Just to be clear, though, my point on all of the social medias wasn't even that he was playing bad defense, is that it looked like he was getting literally twirled around. Not great. And it looked like it happened more than once. Not ideal. There are ways that you can play conservatively where you can even give up a little bit of space to people so that if they drive into you and try to get a bullshit foul by going up through your arms and James Hardening the referees and blah, that you can stay far enough back to prevent that from happening. And yes, your defense won't be the best, but it doesn't mean you get do-si-doed in a circle. That's my point.
No, I think that's a good point. And now I'm like, man, has he ever played in foul trouble before?
I don't know. That's good.
That's
a good question.
No. Probably not. I'm not even trying to defend him here. I'm just like, man, I wonder. Yeah, because there are tricks to playing conservatively. You see great defenders do it all the time, but maybe he's just maybe that was the second time he's been in that position in his career.
I also actually would have been very intrigued to see a healthy Donovan Clingan cleaning up these messes, because it wouldn't have been ideal. But if you have Donovan Clingan down there, right, like I think people, even if you let someone blow by you, they're going to think twice. I mean, you could always like maybe get Clingan up in the air and make one more dump off pass and then have something. But like, I just think that would be interesting too. Man, I miss Donovan Clingan. Like,
that's
so much fun watching him play. But
that's the moral of this podcast, and perhaps the new name for the next 3 weeks. Damn, I miss Donovan Clingan. We're
just gonna, I am actually looking at a slight graphical refresh of the podcast, and so maybe we'll just change the name to "Damn, I miss Donovan Clingan." Anything else we want to talk about in the week that was before we briefly touch on the week ahead?
No.
Sounds like a no. Okay.
We got
Moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA Cup, because it's unfortunate that we're recording because I'm on the East Coast, and I apologize that we're not going to catch this game, which is the Blazers' last NBA Cup game. They're facing the LA Clippers. There are all sorts of tiebreaker implications with the Blazers being at least sort of in contention for the wild card spot. So my understanding is that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that each conference has 4 teams that advance, 3 teams that advance in a wild card. Thank you. Right?
Oh, damn, you were right. I corrected you, and you were right.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. I'm right again. I'm right for the first time. 3 teams that advance and a wild card spot. So 4 teams-ish. The Blazers find themselves in the NBA Cup standings. They are at 2-1. Right now, you have the Houston Rockets and Golden State Warriors are both 3-0. The other teams that are at 2-1 are the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, and the San Antonio Spurs. Now, here's the problem with this. Actually, I'll pause for a moment. I want to go through some of these clinch scenarios, and it seems like there's only one of them that has any real mathematical chance of happening, but there are, in fact, 3 scenarios. I just think 2 of them are exceedingly unlikely. Do you want to run through those, or do you want me to do it, or do you want to take this somewhere else? It's maybe just too much talking. We're doing it on the fly as we do here.
I will quickly get the main one, because I wrote on Sunday morning, we were struggling to find a story. So I said, you know what? I'll knock out the NBA Cup Portland Trailblazers scenarios. How long could that take? And then it took me like 4 hours or like 3 hours to figure out, not only figure out how it works, but then writing it out in a way that's like simple enough. It ended up being like a 1,000-word article. But now I know so much about the NBA Cup and its inner workings. So basically, and this is happening tonight, Magic is in the air. People are very excited all around town. You can feel it when you go to Fred Meyer's.
Everyone's walking down the street holding up cups, and everyone's you mean the NBA Cup? And they're like,
yeah. So the Blazers need to win, first and foremost. The Memphis Grizzlies need to beat the Dallas Mavericks, and the Utah Jazz, and this is the difficult one maybe, need to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if that happens, the Blazers keep dancing. They punch their ticket to the next round as the Western Conference wild card selection. Here's where it sucks, okay?
Go ahead, yeah.
The Blazers, that's like the most likely way, because if in the NBA Cup lore, if you are the second best team in a conference group, and you have the best record of all the second best teams, you automatically go. Okay. And that's what would happen if all those things that I just described happen. But if you are tied with another second best team in record, then it goes to a point differential. And
Therein lies the problem, Connor.
Therein lies the problem. The Blazers getting absolutely smoked by the Houston Rockets a week ago in that first game, which then they beat the Houston Rockets the next day, which was kind of infuriating. that is the main thorn at their side that is making it really hard for them to move on, because the Dallas Mavericks have a plus 41 point differential. Oh. And then the other two teams that could possibly be tied with them, which is like Phoenix and San Antonio or something like that, they have plus like 20 point differential over the Blazers, and the Blazers have -5 point differential. So if those things don't happen, the Blazers would need to win by like 30 points. And I don't know if you see that happening, but
I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, let me just do the math here. If the Dallas Mavericks lost by 1, no, hold on a second. Okay, listen.
You're on the right page. I see where you're going. If the Dallas Mavericks...
I just confused myself, though.
Won by 1...
There we go. That's what he said.
The Blazers would need to win by not just 42, because they're -5 and the Dallas Mavericks are plus 41. So that what's
by like 47 points, basically, something like that.
47 points. They'd have to win by 47 here. Points. Nice.
Simple arithmetic is my jam. So it seems exceedingly unlikely that the point differential is going to fall in the Blazers' favor. It also seems exceedingly unlikely that of any team in the NBA that the Utah Jazz are going to be pulling out a win against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just don't see that happening.
But this is cup magic, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Becomes a thing.
Let's just check the lines right now. According to ESPN Bet, no, we're not sponsored, but the line on the OKC game is -13.5. I don't think the Jazz are winning that game, although they could. It was pretty funny, by the way, to see the Jazz were so close to winning a game, and they are down by 1 point, and their guard goes driving in for the open layup, and there's a whistle, and he turns around, and Will Hardy's called a timeout. Oopsie doodlers!
Wow, I missed that one. Yikes! That's beautiful tanking.
Yeah,
that is amazing tanking.
Amazing tanking. Let me ask you this though. So I think I feel pretty safe saying that by the time people listen to this episode, the Blazers will have sadly been eliminated from Emirates NBA Cup competition. But Connor, the NBA Cup is now in its second year. It has evolved from the in-season tournament to the NBA Cup. Who knows what we're going to call it next year? Maybe we can sponsor it and be called the We Like the Blazers mug. I don't know. Does the NBA Cup, has it done anything for you? Is this making the regular season more interesting? Do we care? And I'm asking you this question. I'm going to throw on a thought. I was responsible for the preview today for the game against the Clippers. Connor, I forgot that it was an NBA Cup game. I follow the NBA pretty closely. I forgot. I'm an idiot, but I forgot. So does any of this matter?
You bring up an interesting point, because I feel like there's two sides of the spectrum. Like you said, forgetting that it is even happening on like a random Tuesday. Like I think a lot of people are in that camp. And like I even a few days, I went to the arena on Friday for the Kings game, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a cup game. The court's different. Like sweet. So like there is some of that. And I take that as just like an educational thing, and that some of that will take time. I kind of, it's like it's a double-edged sword for me on this, because I have jokingly a little bit, like kind of tongue-in-cheek, cared a lot about the cup, because some of the other other media members have kind of done it too, and it's been kind of a funny thing to do with people in press row. Like Eric Garcia Gunnarsson on every cup game is like, the cup matters more. Like he just keeps saying that on every simple play, and I've had a ton of fun doing that, and I think a lot of NBA fans are out there doing a similar thing, just to like have something to even if it's in a joking way, like kind of build up this mystique for the cup. And here's my theory though. Well, that will soon turn into it actually being a thing, is what I think. This kind of joke mystique towards it. If it can keep spreading that way, I think after some amount of years, and your face tells me you don't agree.
I have a different take. I was politely waiting until you're done with your take. Here's my take. I've heard on the podcasts and have seen on the internet that some people are comparing these nascent years of the NBA Cup to the nascent years of the play-in tournament. People were saying the play-in tournament was dumb and that people weren't going to like it. And now look how cool it is. I think there's one pretty major difference between the NBA Cup and the play-in tournament. The play-in tournament matters for getting into the playoffs. If the NBA can find some meaningful way to make these in-season tournament games matter for playoff implications, I don't know how you do it. I'm sure they've already thought of it. I'm sure the competition committee is looking into it. I bet you there are people way smarter than me who are thinking about this, but I don't think there's any amount of branding or, stroking players' egos or offering them money or court design that is going to make this actually matter unless it's tied into the playoffs. And I'm sorry to say, yes, championships, Connor, do in fact still matter quite a bit. And yes, there's more to basketball than just winning a ring. But personally, my opinion is that I don't know if this really matters, and I don't know if it ever will, unless they can tie it into the playoffs somehow.
Let me say just one on NBA Cup group play finale, no less. You come with this non-believer take in the Cup when the Blazers need the most positive energy the whole city can muster right now. For so many,
Connor, if they were in stronger position to get in, maybe I'd feel differently. No, and I don't think that I would, but like. That's all. Like, let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, okay. First, the people who are talking about the in-season or the play-in tournament, I think that's that's not a good parallel at all, because
it was just more of like, they're trying something new. It wasn't.
Because I think that play-in tournament was like undeniably a success from the second it happened. And the Cup is not, because the Blazers were in the first play-in tournament, and those were like epic games for an 8 and 9 seed to be playing during the NBA bubble.
Then getting swept by the eventual champion Los Angeles Lakers. It was great.
We all remember some of the better parts more than maybe the worst parts.
Well, hey, I remember my face being up on a screen during the game, and that was pretty cool.
You were one of the lucky ones, huh?
Yeah, I was.
You were up there?
It was a weird experience, but yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, wow. I think I love that Dave Deckard, managing editor at Blazers Edge, is starting to get behind the Cup. Have you seen some of his columns? He's supporting the Cup.
Is he? He's drinking the cup juice. Oh,
and he wasn't drinking the cup juice last year. So one more thing about the Cup, and by the time this podcast comes out, the Blazers in all likelihood will have been eliminated, but I hope we have taught you at least the machinations of this. And so next year you can have a better idea of how teams get forward, maybe. But
no promises I'm going to remember any of this.
You just need to write 1 3-hour article, and then you will love the Cup. Because you want those 3 hours. You want those 3 hours to not be exactly. You don't want those hours to be meaningless. So now I'm like, yes, the Cup is great.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
we have been asking players about the Cup and Chauncey Billups about the Cup, and Billups is one of the guys where he's like, of course it means more. Like you can see it. You can see the court. Like you're playing for something. Part of me is like, is that just the NBA, like PR people being like, Chauncey, you have to rep the Cup in these answers? I don't know. I'm not going to take a stance on that either way, but it's just like, it does cross my mind. I'm like, does he really believe what he's saying? But Delano Banton, I've wholeheartedly believed him, because we were talking to him about the Cup, and I asked him, like, he mentioned the bonus money. And so I was like, yeah, have you guys talked about the bonus money, like a little like Christmas bonus thing? And he was like, all I'm going to say is we're hungry. So, and I believed him. And because Dave mentioned this in his article, so many of the Blazers players, especially like Delano Banton, they're on like the mid to lower range of contracts. I think Delano Banton's contract is like a few $1 million. So like $500,000 for Delano Banton, that's a pretty big deal. So I think the money affects certain players differently.
I also you know what? I'm willing to be convinced if I have many flaws, but one thing I like about myself is I'm willing to change my mind. I do think, especially, if you have enough players on your team and every team has plenty of them who are making less than the median NBA salary, that even if there are a couple players who really want or need that money to make a difference, I'm sure that their teammates would fight for them. You would hope, right? Like, I mean, if it's like a coherent, functioning basketball team.
If the workplace vibes are good, you probably are. You want to rally around your guys.
Imagine a team tanking one of these games out of spite for their coworker to not get paid.
Oh my gosh,
that'd be a bummer.
They're we do not want Anthony Tolliver to get an extra $500,000. I don't know why I went to Anthony Tolliver first, but
that's a deep cut. I appreciate it. Yeah. Regardless of how the Blazers do tonight and regardless of where they stand in the NBA Cup, you can always find us. Are we good, Connor? Is there anything else you want to say?
We're good. We got it.
We appreciate all of you. You can always find us at WeLikeTheBlazers.com. We are also, I still really haven't been using it, but we're on BlueSky at We Like the Blazers. You can find me, just search for our names, Brandon Goldner, Connor Bergen. We're on BlueSky. We're also proud to be a part of the Rogue Media family, the Blazers Edge podcast family. I'm really butchering this with Trail Daddy and Dave Deckard and Rip City Roundtable with Cory Dickman. I just have to shout everybody out. We appreciate you all. Thanks for being here. And until next time, enjoy your NBA Cup.
May the odds ever be in your favor.